What's next for Jake Paul? I mean, obviously the performance against Nate Diaz was horrible, trash. We don't want to see another MMA fighter fight Jake Paul. We don't want to see this shit. Okay? We don't want to see Masvidal versus Jake Paul. We don't want to see Derek Brunson versus Jake Paul. We don't want to see these fights. We want to see him fight a real boxer. And if he's not going to fight a real boxer, at least fight KSI after he fights Tommy Fury. It doesn't matter if you're not the A side. At this point, I don't even think you're the A side after the performance that he pulled off against Nate Diaz. I mean, have you guys seen the clips? I mean, roll the clip, him just clowning on Jake Paul.
Big round, massive round for Nate Diaz. Legacy. For the people that said he couldn't, Nate looks to lock up the guillotine there. He shows the gloves to the...
So again, whenever he fought somebody good, like let's say Anderson Silva, he got embarrassed as well in that fight. He also got embarrassed by Tommy Fury, the only professional boxer he has ever fought in. So is Jake Paul overrated? What's even next for him? I mean, the only thing that he could really do, and which sucks to say, is that he has to wait for KSI to fight Tommy Fury and see what happens then. Because other than that, we don't want to see another MMA fighter in the ring with him. We don't want to see that. Yeah, it might sell pay-per-views, but we don't want to see that. Okay, again, it just depends what happens with KSI versus Tommy Fury. Does KSI want to fight him? After he said there's an 80% chance that he retires after the Tommy Fury fight. So again, he better be begging on his knees. He better get on his knees and be ready to suck whatever KSI has for him, because he's not going to be A-side. He can't be after losing to Tommy Fury and after the performance that he did against Nate Diaz.
Now, with all the professional fights that Jake Paul has had, people still seem to not wanting to give him his credibility. You know, although they haven't been all professional boxers, they are MMA fighters who have good striking skills. They're not just some nobodies. You know, although he did end up fighting a professional fighter, Tommy Fury, and although he didn't get the win, he still put up a good fight, in my opinion. It's not like Tommy Fury absolutely destroyed Jake Paul. Jake Paul was still in there giving him a good fight. And then after this loss, people were clowning on him and saying, how are you going to come back from this? You lost against a professional boxer, which is what everybody wanted. How are you going to come back from this? Well, here's what Jake Paul does, and here's what Jake Paul is so good at. He ended up having another fight, Nate Diaz, and it still sold over 500,000 pay-per-view sales. So this is what I'm saying. Jake Paul cannot be stopped, and there's never a downfall for Jake Paul. So what's next for Jake Paul? After fighting Nate Diaz, and before that he lost to Tommy Fury, what's next for him? Well, in my opinion, Jorge Masvidal could be next, only because they did have some beef before. They met up in person.
Serious? Why are you trying to cause trouble? Nah, man. Troublemaker? Oh, it's your city?
No.
So you own this right here?
No, not that, but you outside of that.
So you own
This
the
is
whole
private
entire
property. Right out
So
there.
but what you have, because you've been saying a lot on Ariel Helwani,
Like what I say?
calling me a punk bitch.
And Jorge Masvidal hopped on Jake Paul's podcast. So Jorge Masvidal could be a potential fight for Jake Paul in the future. You know, obviously it doesn't look like they're on bad terms because he was still able to do a podcast with him. So obviously they don't hate each other that much, you know. So at the same time, he could be an opponent. KSI could be an opponent. But in my opinion, and I feel like what the people want and what the boxing fans want is KSI versus Jake Paul. Obviously, like my brother said, we have to see what happens Tommy Fury against KSI. But regardless of the outcome, regardless if KSI loses or wins, I feel like that's the best fight that could happen this year to end off the year with a good year.